Hello, welcome to another live video. Every Monday I'm here at 7 Central Eastern European time. So wherever you are in the world, whether you're in Europe or somewhere else, at 7 p.m. I join here and give a little class on something related to how we can fall back in love with ourselves, how we can treat ourselves with a little more tenderness, and how we can really start seeing emotions and start seeing negative self-talk and all these different wonderful topics that sometimes can be a little challenging to navigate, how we can start relating to them differently and seeing them differently. So those of you who don't know me, those of you who are new, welcome. And just to give you a little heads up on my background, so I have 10 years supporting people with emotions, with anxiety, with negative self-talk, with beliefs, all of that. I studied NLP. I'm an NLP trainer. I was training new practitioners for quite a few years. And now I blend everything with creative arts. As you can probably tell behind me, I like to paint as well. It's a big part of what I do. So painting and dancing as well. So the creative expression, all of that, and mixing that with NLP for embodied change, because that is a really powerful combination when we bring what we know about the mind and tools and techniques to work with the mind and the unconscious mind, especially because that's the important part, the unconscious mind, and mixing that with creative arts and dance and creating some powerful processes and practices to really learn how to navigate emotions, learn how to navigate negative self-talk, learn how to reduce anxiety, to let go of anxiety. If you want to know more about my background, you can watch or listen to the first couple of episodes of the podcast. So I have a podcast as well, and that's on YouTube, as well as all the other podcast platforms. Creating Change with Emma Bradford. And I explain a bit more in the first 2 episodes. You can learn a little bit more about what I do and my background and what led me to do this type of work is because I was also experiencing a lot of anxiety as well at the time. So that's what led me into it, but I share much more in the podcast. And today I want to talk about how to navigate going through a breakup. This was actually a question that was sent in by a listener from the podcast, and I will do a full episode on the podcast on this, going into it much more depth, though I thought I'll give a few pointers here. And so many people, well, I'm sure like most people can relate to having gone through a breakup at some point in their life, and there are many people experiencing it right now. So perhaps this can help, or perhaps you know of someone that's going through this, so you can just forward this video, and perhaps it gives them some useful tips and tools to navigate, because it's not fun. Going through a breakup, it's not fun, and it's certainly a time where we need to bring in a lot of tenderness to ourselves and support ourselves and seek support as well. So I'll be sharing some useful tips and tools on how we can make it a little easier, because it's not a wave a magic wand and it's all gone, because where would be the growth in that? Where would be the true embodied wisdom in that if we didn't actually process things and integrate things and move through things? Though here are some tips and tools on how to make it a little easier, because it's not easy going through a breakup. I know from experience, and I know after hearing friends go through breakups, and also like clients as well having gone through breakups. So here's a little video with a few tips and tools, and this is in response to the question, the topic request that came in. And if you have any other topic requests, then please do type in the comments section, send me an email, info@emmabradford.net. You can connect with me there, and also on social media, Telegram, Instagram, all of that. You can connect with me and just ask away. I will bring these into the classes, into the weekly live classes. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, in that time of going through a breakup, like what is usually present, obviously it depends on the situation. Like if you ended the relationship or someone else, like the other person ended it, or it was a mutual decision, regardless of all of that, often there's sadness that comes up, sadness, heartbreak. Sometimes there can be other things, like depending on what went on. Maybe there can be hurt, feeling betrayed, angry, fear. There can be many different things. Depends on how big of a breakup it was, how many feelings were wrapped up in that relationship, whether it was a really short relationship or a long relationship, or one that, regardless of length, like whether there was a really deep connection or not. There are many factors in this. So it's important to really just pay attention to what's present. I know the easy thing is to want to avoid and run away from the feelings. And while some little distraction sometimes can help, though in the long term it's not beneficial to do that, because essentially, like whenever we suppress, whenever we avoid, whenever we run away from emotions, they're still going to be there, just waiting for us to deal with it when they come up next time. So whether that comes up in the motion itself coming up, or whether that comes up in a different version. I experienced a lot of panic attacks in the past, and a lot of that was because of suppressed emotions. So if I had expressed emotions in the beginning, I wouldn't have had so much coming up in the form of panic attacks. Now, this isn't to say that everyone will experience panic attacks. They won't. Everyone's different. That's just how it came up for me, because I was not acknowledging the emotions at the time. So it's important to acknowledge the emotions. Feel the sadness, feel the anger, feel the hurt, feel all of that, and find a safe place for you to do that. There are many different ways that work for different people. So, and many different practices. So I'll start listing like a few practical things, and you can take what resonates. So some people love to write and find journaling and writing things down really useful. So whether that's actually in a journal and you're just writing, and you write every day, and you just like spend, I don't know, like 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes just writing what thoughts and emotions are there. Or you get a piece of paper. This is one of my favorites. Get a piece of paper and you write a letter to that person, or to the emotion, or to like whatever, depends on the situation. So for example, someone ended a relationship with you and you're feeling hurt and sad or angry, or maybe they betrayed you in some way. Write them a letter. And this is not a letter to send to them. This is a letter for you to express. There's a difference. This won't be posted, this won't be sent, this won't be given. The first one is important to just allow yourself to express, unfiltered. So it can include all the swear words, everything, everything in there. So, dear so and so, and then write everything down. Write that letter, unfiltered. Allow yourself to completely express what you feel. Even if you think, oh, that's not very kind or nice or loving or spiritual, or whatever the judgments may be, allow yourself to express unfiltered. Get that out on paper. And when you do that, when you've done that, get rid of it. Rip it up, throw it away. Done. Or if you can safely burn it, So if you can do that safely in a metal container outdoors, or like on the barbecue, like do that safely, that's great also. Burning it, getting rid of it. And essentially what you're doing is you're doing like a brain dump, you're an emotional dump onto the paper, and you're just getting everything out and then releasing that. So that's one practical tip, like writing things down. Another thing that's really useful is moving the body. So most of you know that I love dancing, and that's a huge part of the work that I do as well, is bringing movement into the workshops and the classes. And really working somatically with the body is important, because emotions can reside within the body. They're not just up here. They're not just something that come to us, even though it can feel like it, but it's things that we influence in terms of what we're thinking about, our lifestyle. All of that can influence the emotions that we feel, how we're living our life. And moving our body is so important with that, to move that energy and motion, because if everything is energy, and I won't go into the science of this, but this has been proven many times in science, that everything is made up of vibrating particles, and space, energy is there. And that includes emotions. And some emotions are a little denser compared to other emotions. So, for example, like deep sadness is much more dense in terms of the vibration compared to joy. It's very different. They vibrate very differently. So I tend to call emotions like heavier or lighter. There's no such thing as good or bad. Every single emotion is valid. Every single emotion is valid. So it's all about what we do with them that's important. Whether we are holding on to them, suppressing them, pushing them away, or whether we are allowing ourselves to move that energy and motion, to move that through us, whether that is through dance, whether that's going for a run, going for a jog, whether that's doing some yoga, whether that is doing some like martial arts or kickboxing. That's a great one if there's anger. There is so many different options. So like move the body in some way, move the body. So all of these practical tips that I'm giving you are all related to expression. So writing things down, that's a form of expression. Moving the body, that's a form of expression. Some people love to paint. That's a form of expression. Some people love to sing. That's a form of expression. The list goes on. So find some creative outlet where you can express emotions and move that somatically, like move that through the body, and allow yourself to release that. One thing that I find really useful is like if I'm feeling stressed, and this also helps when there's heartbreak as well. Though I mean, it depends how much is there. Like the writing the letter is really beneficial, and having a good like anger dance or sad dance can be really beneficial. Though one thing I also love to do is walking along the beach, and just allowing myself to make any noise that I feel I want to make, just like a deep sigh, just letting go of any stress that might be there. So that's another thing. And having some kind of support circle can be really beneficial. So when I went through the previous breakup, this was a while ago, and it was a very traumatic breakup. There was a lot of trauma involved with this one, and I really needed support at that time. So what I did is, in the moment of when the relationship ended and everything came up to the surface, and there was a lot of emotions there. In the very beginning, I sent a message to a handful of close friends, And I said to them, hey, this is what's happened and I need support. So for the next month or so, like, please just send me a message every now and again, just check in on me, just like just asking them to be there. And I created this support circle. And this was like one of the best things that I did and that I could have done. So then as I went through the waves of the anger and the grief, because there's many different waves of these emotions and they can come and go, and there are many different layers as well. So it might first start off with shock. It might start off with like sadness, and then it might go into like, everyone goes through it in a different pattern, though there can be denial, there can be anger, there can be many different layers to it. So when we go through those layers and perhaps later on, a few days later, we're feeling even worse or we're in a different emotion, then there we go. We have a little message popping in from a friend just checking in on us. A week later, another message from a friend checking in. So it's in those moments later on where perhaps we don't feel like reaching out to people. People are reaching out to us. This is the thing, like often we tend to hide ourselves away, stay in a little bubble, and feel like that just adds to the heartbreak that we're feeling, because then maybe we might think, oh, no one cares, or no one is paying attention, or no one loves me, or whatever the mind, like what the stories are there. And remember, there's a difference between the stories and the actual reality, because the mind does tend to focus on childhood wounding and the lack as well. So it's just important to notice that, and in those moments where we're feeling that, then we have that support coming in already. And it's important to reach out rather than just hiding away and staying in a little bubble and thinking that no one understands, because believe me, people do understand. I've been in this field for 10 years and I've heard the same stories over and over and over again by such a huge variety of clients. The same stories, the same feelings, the same emotions, all of them. And often each one thinks that they're alone in this, and they're not. Every single person experiences these emotions at some time in their life. So reach out, talk. It's okay to talk. It's okay to reach out to a friend, to a loved one, to a professional, whether that's myself or whether that's another professional. There are so many different ways that we can seek support. So create a support circle. So acknowledge the emotions, find a creative outlet to express them, to allow them to move through, and support. Find a support network, support circle, even if that's just one person, just reach out. And as I mentioned briefly already, in terms of the story, so it's important just to notice, like, how are we talking about this situation to ourselves and about it to others? Obviously, in the beginning, there might be, it might actually be quite healing to have a good rant about it, and that can be a form of the expression, and especially if we have a safe space to do that in terms of speaking with a therapist. Though, notice like when and how much is beneficial, because it's important to have that expression and to have a space where you can talk about the emotions if you need to. And then notice when you start repeating the story, or how you're talking about this story. Like, are you really talking about the reality, or are you talking about your exaggerated version of it, which can be quite common, that we tell our side of the things and not the other person's side of the story. So just notice, like, what story are you telling yourself about what has happened? Like, allow yourself to express, though just notice, like, are you really focused on the reality, or are you distorting it or deleting things or generalizing things in a way? I mean, these are the filters that we talk about in NLP, like whether you're changing it slightly, that then can have a knock-on effect on how you feel about it. And also notice when you're repeating yourself and repeating yourself, and sometimes it comes to a point where actually it's a good idea just to stop talking about it. First have that initial time to express, and then sometimes there's a time where it's a good idea just to move on. Just to move on, let it go. Let it go. So there are so many things. I've got a whole list here, and but those like a few really important tips, like the writing things down, moving the body, like find some creative outlet to express, seeking support, noticing the story, like how you're talking about it, and then choosing to move forward, new chapter ahead. And how are you looking at the past partner? Like, what story are you talking about in terms of them? Like, how are you talking about them? How are you seeing them? Obviously, in the beginning, when there's a lot of hurt and anger or whatever emotions are present, you want to acknowledge that and feel that and express that in a constructive way, though it can be useful just to notice, like, what other, like, how can you move forward from that? You can move forward from that and start seeing them in a different light and start connecting to gratitude. It's like, wow, how did that person invite me to expand? How did that person invite me to expand into the person, the even fuller version of myself? Did they help me step up and reclaim my personal power? Did they help me set boundaries? Did they help me speak my truth? Did they help me recognize what I don't want? Did they help me, like, the list can go on. And maybe they, like, the experience with them or the relationship, maybe it wasn't in the way that you wanted it, though in those experiences, there's a huge amount of gold and wisdom that we can take from that. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. After having gone through that experience, I now know I want this. Or after being with a person that was like this, I now know that I don't want that and I want this. Lessons, insights, learnings. So actually, they can be the greatest teacher. And when we start to reframe things and see things in a different light, not to bypass, because again, first acknowledge the emotions, though then start changing the story after that. Start seeing things in a different light. It's like, wow, that was an opportunity. Wow, thanks to that, I was able to fill in the blank. Thanks to that, I now know, fill in the blank. Gifts, there are always gifts. And yeah, so I'm just looking at the list here because I've got a whole list here. So sometimes people, out of maybe like wanting to still hold on or wanting to, like, feeling fear to really cut a particular connection go completely. Sometimes people still want to be friends afterwards, or they think that they can continue, like, change the relationship into a friendship, and by all means that is possible. Though what I've noticed in, like, what I've witnessed in clients, 10 years of listening to people go through experiences like this, what I've witnessed in myself and what I've seen in friends, that is possible to be friends with an ex-partner, though absolutely all of the time, like most of the time, if not all of the time, it's important to have some period of time with no contact. And for some past relationships and some breakups and some people, it's important to have no contact at all. That once the relationship ends, that's it. You then move on. In some cases, that's necessary. So I went through a breakup many years ago, and this was with a long-term partner, and we ended things very amicably. It was a mutual decision, yet that didn't mean that it wasn't painful. It was incredibly sad. And at that time, even though we're still very good friends nowadays and we're still in contact, and it's completely just friendship, like we just, it's almost like the rest, like the past is history. That's now, it's just this wonderful friendship. But in the beginning, in those first few months after that breakup, there was a period of time with not much contact at all. And that was so important, because then you can go into your own energy, your own space, and to really come back to yourself. Come back to yourself and start rebuilding things again. So it's really important to have time to yourself, no contact, because every time you have contact, every time you reach out or they reach out, or there's no, like, if it doesn't feel good for you, or it's stirring up things again, and then it starts getting messy and confusing, and then you want to get back, and then you break up again, and you want to get back, and that's just a recipe for disaster. Don't do that. It's important to have that break, and in some relationships, some breakups, it's important to have a complete break, and you may not even see that person again. And whilst that might be challenging, it can be one of the best things for your health and well-being. So that's important to mention. And so don't jump straight into like, oh yeah, we'll just go straight into being friends. Like, have some time for you. It's important. And then the final thing I want to mention, I mean, obviously there's like a million more things, but the final thing I want to mention is to start connecting with archetypes, especially the mother archetype. So the mother archetype is all about that nurturing, nourishment, tenderness, love. It's like this big warm hug. And the mother archetype, like tapping into that tenderness, and if you can bring some of that tenderness to yourself in this time of going through a breakup, is one of the most healing things ever. So what would be the most loving, tender thing that you could say to yourself? What would be the most loving, tender thing that you could do for yourself? What would be the most loving, tender thing that you could experience, that you could, like, what would that be? And it can be really simple. It can simply just be giving yourself a hug, just allowing yourself to be present with that, placing your hand over your heart and just saying to yourself, it's okay. Like, it can literally be that simple. It's okay. And if you just bring that into your day-to-day life as you go through the motions, that can really help ease things. You can even put a post-it note up somewhere. You can put a little notification on your phone to pop up with a little message. It's okay, or it's like whatever tender, loving message that would be for you, whatever that would be. So bringing some tenderness, like tenderness is gentle, loving presence. Gentle, loving presence. Like, how can you bring that to yourself? To wrap yourself up in a warm blanket, to give yourself that love and tenderness. Find a way to do that. A way that's constructive, that's helpful, that maybe that is sitting down and watching a film. Maybe that is like going to your favorite restaurant. Maybe that is going for a lovely walk in nature. Maybe that is like, the list goes on. There are so many things, so many ways. So that tenderness, gentle, loving presence. with yourself. So just to recap, because I've mentioned a lot of things. So first of all, acknowledge the emotions, find a way to constructively express them. And you can do that through writing, through dancing, through painting, through like many different modalities. That can also be seeking a professional and having some therapy. That can be having some NLP. That could be having some like coaching, like whatever works for you. And then also like find a way to really like notice the motions within the physical body, like move the body, like work somatically, like move the body, dance, go for a walk, go for a run, like whatever resonates for you, because everyone likes different forms of movement. Dance is my thing. Some people love running. I'm not a runner, so that's not my favorite thing. But for some people, that is a really wonderful thing to clear their head and move emotions. So creative outlet to express, bring in the movement as well, and then notice the story. Notice the story, like what you're telling yourself, what you're saying about the situation, about the other person. Like notice how you might be filtering things or changing things. And then also like notice when it's time to move on. When it's time to move on. Working with a professional for that can be really useful, because then they can feed back what you're actually saying, because sometimes we say things without realizing, and a professional who is trained to hear certain beliefs and words that pop up and the meanings of those, they'll be able to point that out. And then also like having a time of no contact, that's important. Cutting the contact, time for you to focus on you without distraction, bring it back to you. And then finally, that mother archetype, the mother energy, bringing that self-tenderness in whatever way that works for you. And the simple, effective way is hand over heart. It's okay. I'm here. And just saying that to yourself. Saying that to yourself. So thank you so much for watching. I will leave that there. And if you have any questions, you can just pop them in the chat. This whole topic came from a request by a podcast listener. So if you have more requests, you can just let me know and just pop them in the chat, or you can send me an email, info@emmabradford.net. And those of you who are in Barcelona, near Barcelona, I have a workshop coming up, in-person workshop. That's on the 13th of May, and that's in Vilanova i Geltrú. So it's a small, well, not really a small town, it's smaller than Barcelona. It's right by the sea. It's beautiful. There are amazing beaches, wonderful forest, and I will be doing a workshop in a centre fairly close to the station, and it's a short train ride from Barcelona. So those of you who want to join for that, then you're welcome to join us. I will, once I finish the live, I will put the link, the Facebook event link in the description. And the workshop is all about awakening to the magic of you. I mean, this is what I focus on. This is the main thing that I teach. Awakening to the magic of you, and we'll be doing it through creative arts, through dance, and through NLP. So I blend everything that I've been using for the last 10 years with NLP and bring that in with creative arts and movement, and it creates this really wonderful experience for embodied change. So we'll be celebrating ourselves, having fun, and just like getting really playful with that, with color, with movement, and really learning about who we truly are. So that's on the 13th of May in the morning. So it starts at 11 and it's 3 hours long. So it'll be an in-depth workshop, and there'll be a little pause and a break in the middle with some snacks. And if you're coming from Barcelona for that, why not make it a day trip? It's a wonderful way to start the morning being creative, connecting with other people, connecting with yourself, and then you can spend the afternoon on the beach. There are some amazing beaches here. So yes, by all means, celebrate life, celebrate yourself. So that's coming up May the 13th. And if you're not in the area, you can continue with the podcast. Got the podcast coming out. There's another episode coming out on Wednesday. Comes out every 2 weeks. Got the YouTube live here every Monday at 7 p.m. in the evening time, Central European time, and many more things. I mean, I'm always posting online on Telegram channel and Instagram and all of that, plus the newsletter link, which is also in the description. That is the best place to get the personal insights, because I share things there that I don't share anywhere else. So if you want to get some channeled messages, if you want to hear about what I'm going through, what's happening behind the scenes, and get some useful tips and tools in really navigating emotions and negative self-talk and falling back in love with yourself even more, that's the place to be. So the newsletter link is in the description, and I send an email maybe like once or twice a month because I hate spam. So I don't spam at all. So it's literally just like one email a month, sometimes one more, like between 1 and 2. So that's there if you're interested. So thank you so much for watching. I send you lots of love. Thank you for being you, and I look forward to connecting again. Much love.